back to Vision Stage. So next up, we have John Russo from EY, as well as Kiran Muralidharan from EY as well. And they're going to talk about automation at scale, how to create and operate and ensure business ROIs. That'll be a very popular topic. Come on up.
Thank you, everyone. So welcome, everyone. This is about our EY internal story and how we've done automation. Before we kind of get started, we have the official safe harbor slide. So I'm John Russo. I've been in EY for 31 years. Have been doing automation in various roles for about 30 of those years. And so this is kind of talks about, as we now look at kind of RPA, how we did our RPA journey, where we are today. Kiran?
Fantastic. Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm really excited to be here. This is my first time in Vegas. Some great content that we heard from yesterday, this morning. We heard from our Global Vice Chair, Hank, as well. He spoke about how we've automated at scale, and we're going to zoom in on that a little bit and talk to you about how we've helped EY through build, operate, and manage our internal automation. I'm Kiran Muralidharan. I'm the global lead for intelligent automation, and I work for our enterprise technology function. John, back over to you.
Sure. So the journey map we have here, I'm not going to go through all the pieces of that, but our goal today is really, how do you start from concept, your proof of concept bots? How do you start from that, build to scale, then take that and operate at scale? But then also, how do you make sure you're still managing the ROI? When you build a bot initially, are you retaining that ROI? And that's the things we'll be talking about. So for EY, when we started back in the late 2015 timeframe, what we did is, we did our, like usual, we did a proof of concept. We saw the value of that, right? And then we started to kind of bring that back to our leadership. And what we decided to do is, let's go back to our EY consulting team. What are we doing with our clients? We didn't want to try to do it ourselves, because if we did it internally ourselves, we're missing out on all the knowledge we had that we offer to our clients. And we want to live what we sell our clients. We want to live that. So we brought our consulting team in. They helped us set up a COE. We created that automated, that centralized COE. All the processes around building workshops and making sure you really build a good pipeline. Because we didn't want to have proof of concept, stop, think about it, do something else, and you have to start and stop. You want to, once you get your momentum, you want to keep that momentum going. And so we did that, and they stayed with us until we got that momentum. Well, what we did is, within that first 6 months, you went to 200 bots. By the end of 2 years, we were at 1,000 bots. Now, some of the things to keep in mind, though, when we were doing this, so often when you talk about RPA, the first thing people ask you is, what am I going to save? Show me the money, right? And the problem we found is, by looking for the money in your ideas, you're limiting your ideas. So what we did is we flipped that and said, let's not go look for the money. Let's look for how you change your business. How do we change the way our employees do their work? How do you change your customer, whether it's an internal customer or external customer? How do you improve that? How do you look for things like improving compliance, reducing risk, speed to market? That's what we went after. Because if you go after that, the money will show up. It shows up in you changing your business. So that's how we really got to that 1,000, by really opening people's ideas. And even my own team, asking my management team, what are you not doing today that you wish you could do? That's where some of our ideas came from. It's really, I wish I could do that, but I don't have resources, I don't have the technology. That's where you can go after that. So we did that through the 2018. 2019, we matured a little and said, let's step away from a centralized COE and let's go federated. So the businesses, each of our functions own their development. But what we did is we pulled the operations side into IT, because that's what IT does. And that's what Kiran will talk about. He took over the operations for all of our back office bots. We did that, and then we also brought in UiPath, because we were using multiple technologies in our RPA platform, but UiPath had attended automation, was really interesting to us. And you heard about that in the keynote. What we did is we said, we were at the same time deploying our SAP platform, which we call Mercury. So we used the attended automation as a layer, as a wizard, to help people through the Mercury implementation. Because when you're deploying Mercury for us, for example, just in the US, you're going to deploy Mercury to 45,000 people. Well, if you have to train them for 20 hours to learn how to do all the SAP screens, person one gets trained, 6 months later you launch. They lost what they learned, right? So we had to find a better way to do it. So we, again, went back to our consulting, and they designed what we call empath. And so empath is a wizard layer that sits on top of SAP, and our 15 major processes are all, click on the bot will lead you through that process. So it took away our training. We didn't have to worry about training people because you're guided through your processes. So that's some of the things we did to kind of really leverage that. And so we launched it with our first pilot of 75,000 people. We've now grown, in the beginning of this year, we're at 125,000. We just released our next release of countries. So now we just grew past 150,000. And in January, we should hit 200,000. So that, again, and that gives a platform now. All these people are available. They all have Studio X for citizen development as well. So when we talk about some of the, so that kind of gives you that broad landscape of how we got there. When we look about value, as I mentioned before, don't go after the money initially. It'll show up. Well, this really shows us, for all the unattended bots, we saved over 4 million hours. We touched over 415 processes. We really changed the way we delivered business across the different functions within the organization. And then when we go and look at what we had for, I mentioned empath. So for empath, again, we're at 150,000 people. We do 1.5 million transactions a year. And what we saved, again, we just started recently looking at the dollars, just the training dollars saved. So just the training people didn't have to attend is $24.5 million worth of training, worth of labor we saved. And that doesn't talk about the fact that we have 15 processes that are much more efficient and easier for people to do. They didn't have to do 19 clicks and spend 20 minutes in a step. They spent 4 minutes in a step because it was automated. And we didn't even calculate that. So there's just huge amounts of value that we got out of that, out of the platform and the partnership. And Kiran, you want to talk a little bit about how we really talk about our operations side?
Absolutely, John. Thank you very much. We all agree technology is great, and I think it's reflected in the fact that so many of us are here wanting to understand how we can leverage technology to help scale and drive outcomes for our organization. But the real question I have for all of you is technology alone sufficient to drive automation at scale? And that's exactly what we're here to talk about. What are the things that we did in EY that helped us scale automation? So there were 4 areas that we focused on: people, process, data, and analytics. And these really spread across 3 areas, which is really building, operate, and managing our bots. So I'll just switch on to the next slide, right? So like with any transformation journey, and the same applies to your automation journey, you really want to start with your people, making sure that you have their buy-in and their confidence that automation is going to augment their career. And as we went through that journey that John just walked us through, we really left no stone unturned to ensure that our people have access to knowledge, training, tools to build their own automation and drive their career forward. That was key for us as we started off our automation journey. And in our experience of driving large enterprise class programs, it's sometimes a challenge to get everybody on board to adopt a new technology. So what we did is we identified that we needed a role that would almost act as a bridge between our technology function and our business team. So as we identified, we nurtured, and the team of super users went back to their day jobs, they started to identify opportunities for automation, either at a business process level or simply at a task level. What we saw is that as these bots were getting built, outcomes were being delivered, that we started to see that those people who were on the fence about whether automation could really deliver started to join the bandwagon, and that's when we really started to pivot, right? That journey that John just walked us through from 50 to 100 to 1,000. And the point that I want to make here is that getting your people along and making sure that they're with you is directly proportional to how successful you are in scaling automation, right? The next slide is, this is a busy slide, so I'm not going to walk through everything in detail, but as you scale automation, you will start to build on top of some of your firm critical processes, right? And as you start to do that, you want to make sure that you're still continuing to provide your business superior experience of automation, and that automation can really work at scale. And some of this really means that you have to be focused on building the bots right, not just building the right bots. What I mean by that is making sure that your bots are embedded with exception handling, error logging, right, and validating that and making sure that those things are built within the bot as you move it into production. Otherwise, when things go wrong, and as John will attest to, what we've seen is it's very difficult for us to go back and identify where in the process something went wrong and how we fix it. It's also important to focus on things like business continuity, because again, you really want to make sure that your business continues to have that superior experience as you scale. Now, I'll move on to the next piece, which is really on the data side, right? And this is really focused on the operate piece of the whole build, operate, manage cycle, right? And this is something that's pretty close to my heart, where we started to use the logs that were being generated by the bots. So we put it in as a standard into some of our unattended bots, some of our more complex processes, where we started to use that to identify where the bots were failing, right? Ingesting that into log analytics capabilities, really to drive more auto detection, and even pushing that further with AI ops for purposes of self-healing, and taking that a step further and seeing how we could use AI and ML to build a knowledge engine so that our teams could be self-sufficient in identifying probable solutions for issues that they were facing. And what this really took us to is a point where our citizen developers and our super users were almost self-sufficient, where they were not reaching out to IT, so that they had a frictionless experience from building a bot to managing and operating that bot themselves. And that's where you really want to get to, is that you don't want them to stall along that process of building automation. The last slide that I'll talk about is the analytics, right? And this is a key differentiator for your business teams, right? What we have up on the screen is just a subset of the data that we have. We can't show you the entire data, it's just a subset. But really what it is that as things moved from being executed by team members to being executed by digital workers or bots, our business teams didn't have the ability to find out how their bots were executing, what their bots were doing, or really what their bots weren't doing. What we saw was that our business teams were struggling to find out whether their bots had successfully completed, what was the handling time that they needed, right? And we started to develop KPIs that we could talk to the business and help them with their service delivery, with the outcomes that they were driving, right? Starting to talk about the utilization of bots, the transactions that were being processed, how long it took for those transactions to be processed, which countries were adopting the bots, which functions did not adopt the bots, right? And also looking at that data to really drive opportunities to optimize the processes. And those were great collaboration between the business and technology teams, where we were able to actually drive a lot more optimization and ultimately outcomes and return on investment for our customers, right? You can also take this a step further and look at how you can optimize your platform. And imagine we're running at scale, 150,000 to 200,000 bots. What are our peak times? What are our non-peak times? How are we using our licenses? Are we running in the most cost-optimized fashion? And how do we really enable the business to have sustained automation value and ROI? I'm going to hand it back over to John, but I hope our session was insightful. John, over to you.
Thanks. So, I mean, we gave you a lot in a few minutes. So obviously, if you'd like to talk more about this, we're going to be at the lunch roundtables. So we have 2 roundtables for the next 2 days. We'll also be at our booth right behind at various times. And I also, stop by our booth. We have a number of people talking about a lot of the things we do at EY and the services we have. one of the things that's really, really interesting is that you'll see in the booth is how do you take metaverse now, and how do you start to blend metaverse with the real world, and how do they interact? You'll be able to actually see some concepts that we're talking about there. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the sessions here, and we'll see you on the floor. Take care.